Hello, everyone. My name is Renee. Welcome to my first episode of my podcast. This one is titled The Little Things That Change Everything. Before we get started here, I just want to mention that my background is mainly of social work. And within the last 6 years, it has also been incorporating as well personal development. And I just want to bring my perspective and journey on things that I have learned to everyone here. So, this one, like I said, this podcast is called The Little Things Change Everything. So, let's get into it. I'm so excited to start this journey with you. Now, have you ever noticed how much of life is spent waiting? You're waiting, might be waiting for a breakthrough, might be waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a promotion, waiting for the perfect time, waiting for life to finally feel different. Many of us grow up believing that transformation arrives in one dramatic moment, that one day everything will suddenly click into place and our lives will change forever. But what if that's not how change actually works? What if the biggest shifts in your life aren't created in the spotlight? What if they're happening right now in moments so small that people overlook them completely? The decisions nobody sees, the habits nobody applauds, the conversations you have with yourself when you're alone, the choices you make on ordinary days. But the truth is, life changing moments rarely announce themselves. They usually arrive disguised as small decisions. A legendary coach, John Wooden, once said, "It's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen." And the more I reflect on that quote, the more I realize how true it is. Because when you look closely at almost any meaningful transformation, you'll discover something fascinating. The change began long before anyone noticed. Now, today I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in a word obsessed with instant results. I want to talk about the little things, the invisible things, the daily choices that quietly shape who we become. Not the highlight reel, not the viral success story, not the overnight breakthrough. I'm talking about the moments that seem too small to matter until one day you realize they mattered more than anything else. Now think about nature for a moment. Every towering tree began as a tiny seed, not a forest, not a giant oak tree. A seed, something so small it could fit in the palm of your hand. And yet, within that tiny beginning existed the potential for something extraordinary. Human growth works much the same way. Confidence begins with one courage action. Healing begins with one honest conversation. Financial freedom begins with one new habit. A healthier life begins with one better choice. Transformation rarely happens all at once. It happens gradually, quietly, and one small step at a time. And that's often where people become discouraged because we live in a culture that celebrates outcomes while ignoring the process. We see the success, we see the achievement, we see the finished result, but we don't see the hundreds or sometimes thousands of small choices that created it. Now, real growth isn't always exciting. Sometimes it's incredibly ordinary. It's getting up when you'd rather stay comfortable. It's choosing discipline when excuses feel easier. It's reading 10 pages instead of scrolling endlessly. It's taking care of your mental health when nobody is reminding you to. It's honoring commitments you've made to yourself. And the challenge is that these actions rarely feel significant in the moment. Most of them don't create instant results, and most don't provide immediate rewards. But over time, they change everything. One of the greatest misconceptions people have about success is believing that it comes from massive actions. In reality, its most lasting success comes from consistent actions, small actions, repeated actions, intentional actions, day after day, week after week, month after month. And here's what makes that difficult. For a long time, it can feel like nothing is happening. You don't see dramatic progress and you don't see instant results. You don't see visible evidence that your efforts are working. And that's often the moment people give up, not because they're incapable, not because they lack potential, because they mistake invisible progress for no progress. Now imagine planting a seed for weeks, maybe even months. Nothing appears above the surface. If you judged growth only by what you could see, you'd assume nothing was happening. But what's happening underneath the soil? Roots are developing, strength is forming, foundations are being built. And eventually, what was happening in private becomes visible. I think many of us are in that season more often than we realize. We're building roots. We're growing beneath the surface. We're becoming stronger in ways that aren't yet visible to the world. The problem is that we often quit before the growth has a chance to emerge. So let me ask you something. What habits are shaping your future right now? Not your goals, not your intentions, not the version of yourself you hope to become someday, your actual habits. Because intentions are important, but habits reveal direction. The life you're creating tomorrow is being influenced by the choices you're making today. Are those choices moving you closer to the life you want or further away from it? It's a powerful question and sometimes an uncomfortable one, but it's also a necessary one because your future isn't built someday. It's built daily, moment by moment, choice by choice. And here's another truth we don't talk about enough. The small things work both ways. Just as small positive actions create meaningful change, small negative patterns can quietly shape our lives too. One day of procrastination doesn't seem significant. One excuse doesn't seem harmful. One negative thought doesn't appear dangerous. But repeated often enough, patterns become habits. Habits become identity. Identity becomes destiny. That's why awareness matters. That's why paying attention matters because your life will naturally move towards whatever patterns you reinforce consistently. Not necessarily your biggest dreams, not necessarily your strongest wishes, your patterns. Now, as a social worker, one thing I've witnessed over and over again is that lasting change isn't usually about willpower alone. It's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who aligns their actions with the future they want to create, even when it's difficult, even when nobody notices, even when progress feels painfully slow, even when the results haven't shown up yet, because growth isn't always measured by what you've achieved. Sometimes growth is measured by who you're becoming, and that distinction changes everything. The beautiful part of that transformation doesn't require perfection. It never has. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need a flawless plan. You don't need to have everything figured out. Maybe today all you need is one small shift, one healthier habit, one better decision, one act of courage. One moment where you choose belief instead of fear. One moment where you choose action instead of hesitation. Because small changes, repeated consistently, become extraordinary outcomes. When all people tell stories about success, they often focus on the breakthrough, the promotion, the achievement, the milestone, but rarely do they talk about the years that came before it, the quiet mornings, the difficult choices, the persistence, the discipline, the moments when nobody was watching. Yet that's where the real stories lives. That's where greatness is built, not in one defining moment, but in thousands of ordinary moments stacked together, one choice at a time. And perhaps the most powerful word in all of this is compound. Because life compounds, confidence compounds, knowledge compounds, habits compound, relationships compound, financial growth compounds. Everything you repeatedly invest in eventually grows. So the question becomes, what are you investing in every day? And what are those investments creating for your future? Maybe today's message is simply a reminder to not overlook the small things, not to dismiss the tiny improvements, not to believe that progress only counts when it's dramatic, because some of the most important moments of your life won't feel important while they're happening. The workout you almost skipped, the book you almost didn't read, that uncomfortable conversation you almost avoided, that dream you almost talked about out of persuasion, that decision to keep going when nobody else understood your vision. Those moments matter more than you know. So if you've been feeling discouraged, if progress feels slower than you'd hope, if your goals still feel far away, keep going. Keep planting seeds. Keep building habits. Keep showing up. Keep choosing growth, even when the results aren't visible yet. Because one day you'll look back and realize something remarkable. The life you were hoping for wasn't created in one giant breakthrough. It was built through thousands of small decisions, thousands of ordinary moments, thousands of little things. And maybe that's the real secret. Extraordinary lives are built through ordinary actions repeated with purpose. So today, pay attention to the details. Protect your habits. Be intentional with your thoughts. Honor the commitments you make to yourself. And never underestimate the power of one small step taken consistently. Because the little things don't just matter, the little things change everything. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Now, before you go, I want to leave you with one simple reflection. What's one small action that you can take today that your future self will thank you for? Not tomorrow, not next week, today, because your future isn't waiting for a breakthrough. It's already being built. One choice, one habit, one detail at a time.